really excited to talk to Georgina today, because when I was looking at all her career history, she's done it all. Absolutely fabulous, from starting out as a Norland nanny to now working with a maternity nurse franchise. She has done it all. And I love that you're doing it from your son's bedroom today, because that is basically how we work in childcare, like this. So welcome, Georgina.
Thank you very much.
So I briefly touched on there your wealth of experience in the maternity sector. You've done so much. So please, could you briefly share with our listeners exactly what you've been up to?
Okie dokie. Well, my apologies. I did write some notes, because anybody that has a child, or even within the sort of the maternity sector, you do know that as parents and mothers, you have this wonderful thing called baby brain. So I wanted to make sure that I got everything across. So I wrote notes. So my apologies if I'm looking down a bit, but I am literally just sort of reminding myself of the key points that I wanted to get across. So yes, I have worked for over 25 years as a maternity nurse, and when I sort of calculated it out, it was about 200 families that I have worked with or alongside. I started out as a maternity nurse when I was about 23, so very, very young in the sort of the maternity side of things. And to be honest, I knew very quickly that I'd found my niche. The roles have varied in location, numbers of babies, and the needs of the family. Alongside, I have done night nannying, troubleshooting, nursery consultancy, which has been great fun. So I've seen sort of all sides of childcare provision.
That's brilliant, thank you. And like I say, when I was reading about you and you sent me a little link to find out more about you, I was like, wow, what a perfect candidate for today. You literally have done so much. So most importantly, obviously, we have a lot of learners who are probably going to be listening today and who would like to do some of those roles that you've just discussed. Can you share the qualifications that you did have to undertake to carry out these careers? And I know one that people are always interested in is becoming a Norland nanny.
Sure. So I was very fortunate to attend the 3-year nursery nurse training at Norland. So I emerged sort of ready to work, really. And of course, along the way, I updated and specialised. And quite early on, I added the maternity practitioner qualification, which is something that sort of as the agency, we really advocate as well.
That's brilliant, thank you. That's really helpful, because a lot of the time people know what they'd like to do, but they don't quite know the route how to get there. So that's brilliant. When I was reading about you, Georgina, you put that prior to your training, you organised work experience and you did ensure that all the courses that you chose to study and the subjects that you chose to study were relevant to what you would like to do in the future. How important is this? And I ask this because we sometimes got older students coming in who perhaps don't have those correct sort of studying mechanisms in place. So how important is that, do you feel?
For me, it was important, because I knew what I wanted to do. There are so many different routes into this career, but for me, I was pretty linear.
Yeah, you knew you wanted to do that. Yeah, I actually come from a teaching background and I was the same. You sort of set everything up, don't you? Like building blocks and stuff.
I think for some people it's a passion, it's a vocation, and you become very focused on the direction you're traveling.
Yeah, and I think you do know quite early on, even when you gain work experience, is a brilliant idea, isn't it? Because you get yourself in that setting and see how you feel. That's the best thing to do.
Definitely.
Brilliant. One of the things I was really interested in was you have had experience of working as a ski nanny. How did you get into this career, and how did you find working in this situation? It sounds glamorous, but I'm guessing.
Well, it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot of fun. For me, this was an example where I wanted to sort of combine two things that I love: skiing and children. It worked some of the time, but not all of the time. Sometimes I didn't have enough time skiing, as you know, not being able to ski as much as I would have liked. And Other times I didn't have enough time to bond with the children, as I was in a creche, or I was managing sort of large groups. So yeah, so I didn't have time to sort of bond always with the children. It was an experience that I have great memories of, but a little bit like holiday nannying. You know, you're not actually on holiday, you are still working. So yeah, it was superb. It was a great way to spend 3 or 4 months. So yes, I recommend it. Definitely recommend it.
Fabulous. Yeah, it does sound really good fun. And another sort of leading on from that, I suppose it's not always the best career once you have started your own family, being a ski nanny. So it's obviously looking at different options. And after the birth of your son, you had the opportunity to join a franchise, which is called Harmony at Home. So can you tell us more about this and how it works around your young family?
Okie dokie. So joining Harmony at Home was a complete career change for me. It was a decision that I took a long time to sort of work through, but it was totally the right decision for me. I'm constantly struck with the similarities between my own family experiences and the families that I'm helping. I think connection really helps me understand the needs of the families.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? And you can share your journey and that you came out the other side, and you can support the families with that too. So that's really important. So in this role, you do primarily work in the nursery nurse sector. We have a lot of students and listeners who are interested in becoming maternity nurses. So can you explain a little bit more what that entails, what the role is, and what a typical day might be as a maternity nurse?
Certainly. They're there to provide the early postnatal support and care that the family needs. Typically, a maternity nurse goes in the early days to establish a routine that the family wants, and they typically leave after 6 to 8 weeks.
Right, okay. Yes, it sounds like a really interesting role. So you're with the family in those very important first few weeks, aren't you? Important to build those relationships quickly and assess.
Definitely. It's very important that the families are able to trust you from a very early stage. From day one, you're taking their most precious gift and, you know, looking after it. And parents need to know that they have the confidence in you to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Sounds brilliant. What are the best things about working with children and their families, and what are the challenges that may occur? Obviously, you've done this for a long time now, so is there anything else you think our listeners should consider before going into this sort of industry?
Yeah, there's always new challenges. For me, I get total satisfaction of knowing that I've given the family exactly what they need. The early days are so precious, but equally terrifying. And to know that you've placed someone that is going to take away their worries is very satisfying. Maternity nursing is so intense, and I think it's really important for maternity nurses to acknowledge their own needs. Whilst you have to give 100% in this role, you also need to take time in between the roles to fully recover. And sometimes it's just even going to the dentist. It's simple, everyday things that you can't do when you're working. So you need that time at the end.
Yeah, I suppose it's good that it does offer that flexibility. And like you say, oh, I'm working 6 to 8 weeks, and you think that's not a long period of time, but actually you're in quite a high stress situation at sometimes, I imagine. And there's a lot to do and a lot of support in that time, isn't it? So self-care is very, very important. That's right. A lot of our listeners will be new, so they've obviously come and do the courses, and then they're launching their childcare career. And many worries that we hear a lot is, how do I get my name out there? How do people know about my service? How do I advertise? Is there any way you've done so in your past that you could recommend for this?
Certainly. I think it's really important to newcomers to register with an agency. Not all agencies will take on newcomers. We at Harmony at Home, we do. The extra support can be really helpful in those early days. We at Harmony at Home, we also offer a virtual coffee morning, which we run every 3 months. And so this is an opportunity to meet other maternity nurses, to ask questions, simple questions, what should I bring that I wouldn't normally think about bringing, which is a classic one, which actually is an extension lead. You always need an extension lead when you're maternity nursing. So it's just sort of simple things like that.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? And sometimes, obviously, I come from the childcare industry myself. It can be lonely at times because you're with the children majority of the time rather than adult conversations. Those meetups sound a brilliant idea.
It's very solitary. And although you work within a family, so you're within a team with the parents, but it is still you. And if I'm honest, I didn't meet many maternity nurses in the early days of my career. And I had an opportunity to go to a meeting a little bit like the one that we hold. And it was fantastic to have 10 maternity nurses in one room that we could chat and we could talk to. And this was in 2012, and I'm still in touch with at least 3 of those maternity nurses still.
Like you say, all like-minded people, and a question that you might think sounds a bit silly, they're all thinking it, and they can acknowledge that if you're on the same page.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So do you have any final encouraging words or a message for our listeners who are considering entering the childcare industry? Obviously, many people who are listening today will probably be at the start of their career. So anything you wish you had known when you started yours?
Yes. Don't stand on the edge. Get your qualification and get started. It's an incredibly rewarding career. Don't forget to pack your extension lead. New baby households are awash with cakes and biscuits. I recommend an early investment to Weight Watchers.
Fabulous. Brilliant. Thank you, Georgina. That's brilliant. I will see if anyone listening has got a question, if you pop those in the question and answers or the chat at the bottom. If anybody is watching this delayed and they have a question they'd like to ask, then do feel free to contact us and we will pass those still on to Georgina. And thank you for those who have tuned in a little bit later than expected, because we really do appreciate that. And thank you, Georgina. Your son's been marvellous.
Well, it's debatable. I was a brilliant maternity nurse, but I'm terrible as a mother. I don't believe it for a second. Routines are a little bit fluid, let's put it like that, especially today with the doctor's appointment and everything.
It just sprung on you today, haven't you? You're doing really
it just changed things up a little bit, and I think sometimes that can just sort of put everything, sort of out a little bit off kilt.
That's right, but you're doing fabulous, so it's all good. Don't think at this minute we've got any come through, but if we do have any in the future, we will forward them on to you. So once again, I'm going to let you get back to your wonderful son, and thank you so much for joining us. Like I say, it was a bit of a tricky morning for Georgina, so we really appreciate you coming along and sharing your wealth of knowledge.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's been a total joy, and I hope to new maternity nurses that are considering the role that they do sort of, as I say, take the leap, because it's worth it. It's a brilliant career.
I know, I myself work with families, and it's wonderful, isn't it? And sort of the fulfillment that you get out of it and how rewarding it is, it kind of makes the low bits all worthwhile when you put it into perspective. That's brilliant. That's a great note to end on. So good luck to everybody who's listening as well.
Thank you for watching our video. For more London School of Childcare Studies content, see our social media or visit our website childcarestudies.co.uk.